Greetings, everyone. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I'm the CEO of TEDCO Maryland's Innovation Hub. First of all, I got to say, we're taping this on the Friday before Labor Day. And a couple of things with that. One, it's right before my anniversary, my 1-year anniversary. So I'm regrettably having to give up my rookie card. I've been playing my rookie card for the last year, so I'm gonna have to give it up. I have to find another reason to say stupid things. But I'm wearing white because, I don't know who made this rule up, Nasir, but, you post up, not wear white after Labor Day. I'm not quite sure who made this silly rule up, but I decided for you, my brother, I was going to wear all white as we go into the Labor Day weekend. So I am here today with, as we kick off this kind of my second year in this next round of TEDCO Talks with a young man who has an amazing career, but more importantly, he is one of the, frankly, few Black men in this country who is running and controlling and has raised a venture capital fund of means. And so couldn't be happier to be with Nasir Qadree of Zeal Capital. You'll learn more about Zeal Capital here in a minute, but Nasir, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Troy, it's great to see you, great to be with you. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. My grandmother would always often say, ask for forgiveness later. So wearing the all white, you usually wear all white after next week. You do your thing. But no, the work you're leading, seriously, it's admirable, and it's so important, especially in the state of Maryland, where there's just so much innovation. We're seeing on our side, on the venture side. So just excited to share why we believe in ecosystems like Maryland, where entrepreneurs deserve a fair swing at the plate at capital and other resources.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to learn about Zeal, but let's a little bit about Nasir. So this young man is, we'll learn about his venture capital, his investment role, but he's a DJ and he's a marathoner. And so we're going to ask you a couple of questions around both of these. So let's start with the DJ. So what's your go-to? Are you an 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010? Got to know.
Look, I come from a family that has ingrained soul, jazz, house music in me. And if you know anything about Frankie Knuckles, DJ you know anything about Donald Byrd and Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder, that's the type. And then even go a little bit into Radiohead and John Mayer, like not the average white band. Like I think of it, Roy Ayers across.
Oh man! Oh, come on with it, come on.
And I'm an '84 baby, so I'm getting into music way before my time, but music, as it being one of many forms of artistry, has always been something that has it's become also therapeutic in many ways as well, especially recently over the past year. But DJing has been a new craft of mine that I've been leaning in and been really excited to make time for.
So do you actually do parties? I mean, you do house parties?
You know what? I share with my better three quarters and my friends that I do not. That's not my goal. My goal is to have my moment. Even I've done some what do you call it? Instagram Live a few times.
Yeah.
Myself and maybe 3 other listeners. No, I'm joking, but no, I never. I don't anticipate transitioning to a party DJ. Just like, I think they call it hotel lobby music, that music where, you can still have a nice little dialogue over some nice, soothing music. But yeah, I don't plan to.
So what's the DJ name, brother? What's the DJ name? Everybody got to have a DJ name.
Keep it simple, Troy. Nasir, DJ Nasir.
Oh, we're gonna ask our listeners to come up with some names. We're gonna have them send us some names.
I'm absolutely open, but I figure, I Google, is there a DJ Nasir Q in the world? And much like that, there's no Nasir Qadree in the world. Go ahead and maintain that. That's the beauty of having a unique name.
Yeah, amen on that, brother. So let's talk about marathons. I'm a runner myself. I've done a few marathons. My wife actually has done a lot more marathons. When you're doing a marathon, what in your mind is is that first third, that middle third, or that final third that really is the mental, not the physical, but the mental challenge?
They say, and I've been a bear witness to it after running 18 full marathons. That's 26.2 miles, by the way. That once you hit 14 miles, after that, it is straight mental. I mean, obviously the training is important, but it is such a mental mindset to focus on that hill and focus at every step. And for me, I think about when I'm raising money, when I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it just to go out because it's a hobby that I enjoy, and the fact that it does introduce me to my worst enemy in terms of running a marathon is very rigorous. Starting a company is just as hard, and so I think there's a correlation there. But I'm also running these marathons around the country to shine a spotlight on first generation college students, who I believe people talk about the American dream. I think the epitome of the American dream are those who are first generation college students, those who are the first in their family to graduate from college, climbing a ladder that no one around has ever climbed before. Amen. And so I'm raising $1 million to support FGs around the country, and half of the proceeds are going to an organization called America Needs You, which is dedicated to mentorship, career development, and training for FGs around the country.
You want to shout out if there's a support or website that people can go to learn more about or to support your efforts? AmericanNeedsYou.com or AmericanNeedsYou.org, excuse me, is where you would find how to become a mentor, how your ways of supporting, not just financially, but your resources. I believe there's also an area where you can learn more about my marathons as well. But very, very excited to support that organization and even mentees who I've grown to know, who are also first generation college students, that they're climbing a ladder within their own family. So mentoring also first generation college students and supporting them along their journey has been an area that I've proactively made time for. So of those 18 marathons, which course has been the most challenging for you?
Man, I would have to say Maine. Maine was tough. Maine was raining. It was cold. It was hilly in all the wrong moments. But oh my goodness! But it was also what got me through. So my mom and my mother. And I also ran with a number of close friends, which I love running with people. It's the best races when you're able to run with people, especially your partner or your close friends. But my mother actually has joined me at about 7 of those marathons.
Oh wow!
And what I love about when my mother joins me at the end, right before I cross the finish line, she's right there, and I just tell her to come on. And we'll raise our hands together as if she ran 26.2 miles, but she's essentially just getting me over the finish line and cheering, celebrating another.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
Another race in the books. But
man, that's beautiful.
That support is so important.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, let's learn about Zeal. Let's learn about Zeal. So why don't you tell folks about Zeal? Because I'm just excited. Look, if folks that don't know, let me set this up a little bit, and I'm sure you'll do the same. The venture capital world, for folks that don't know, is a very white male dominated world. Just no other way to say it. And it's not trying to sound racist or anything. That's just the nature of the business. And you literally can count the number of Black partners at those firms. And you can literally count the number of Blacks who have gone out to raise their own fund on their own, or lead a fund like a TEDCO. And so and what people also don't understand is when you're doing a first time fundraise, that's even more difficult. Normally, the way venture capital firms work is they're raising fund 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And clearly they have other people they go to. But when you're raising that first fund, you're not just you're selling because you have technically no track record because you don't have a first fund, because it's the first, you don't have another fund. So you're really selling on whatever you've done in the past, but more importantly, you're selling you. And this young man has got to go and talk to people, in many cases that don't look like him, to raise the amount of money. I don't want to say, I want him to say the amount of money that he raised, because it's an amazing figure. And so I'm very proud of what you've done, because I've been in this space long enough to know that this is an accomplishment. So congratulations to that. So again, let our folks know about Zeal.
Well, first, Troy, thank you for giving the space to share. You're right. Raising a fund is no small feat. Raising a fund as a first-time manager, a solo general partner, a diverse fund manager at that, being headquartered in DC at that. So many, buckets that one can look at and could say, good luck. and a lot of, there were a lot of I told you so's in a minute in
Sure.
the beginning. And so it feels really good to just work tirelessly on the conviction I've always had in this strategy. But to your point, I have spent my career, talk about track record, over the past 7 years across the private markets, more recently leading AT&T Social Investment Fund, which was a $400 million investment vehicle, which gave me the ability to not only make direct equity investments, but much like you, also have the ability to provide grant or non-diluted capital into ESOs around the country, the entrepreneur support organizations around the country. We did that for 24 of those, all of which were outside of Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston. So that really allowed us to really rethink, or at least lean into secondary or flyover cities. And then also, in turn, when you build those formal partnerships, it also allows you to have a more diverse pipeline of entrepreneurs, right? So companies coming from Atlanta, from Des Moines, Iowa, from Detroit, here in Baltimore, in DC, in Austin. And so, that was a huge competitive advantage for us. Compared to traditional venture capitalists who were in terms of, as we think about traditional tech hotbeds, Boston, Silicon Valley, and New York. Prior to that, I was global head of education technology in their future of work practice at a firm called Zeal Capital, and I'm sure many of your viewers might have heard, which is probably one of the most active global investment readiness and seed stage funds, focusing across 5 different verticals: healthcare, financial, technology or wellness, agriculture, energy, and then education. I was the global head of their education technology practice, sourcing, investing, and helping scale companies from emerging markets like New Delhi, India, Nairobi, Kenya, Colombia, Mexico City, and here in the US. And then the latter part of my time at Zeal Capital, I led their US economic opportunity portfolio, essentially just expanding my lens, not just in education, but financial services and healthcare. I share this context because, this experience really allowed me, Troy, to understand, I like to call them islands of excellence. Yes. Exemplars in terms of how other ecosystems and other emerging markets, and even here in the US, rallied around their entrepreneurs, whether it was investors or other ESOs or angel investors or think tanks, academia, state and local government, you name it. And I think, and that was one of the key lessons learned, is that everyone can help the entrepreneurial ecosystems. And also, more importantly, the fact that great entrepreneurs exist everywhere, not just coming from very few places, backing the same people. Yeah. And so when in 2019, the latter part of my time at AT&T, 2 of my biggest mentors were at the Hamilton. You know about the Hamilton in DC. And, he's sitting back. They're 2 of my biggest philanthropic supporters for the marathon fundraising that I've been focusing on philanthropically. And he says, Nasir, talk about these democratizing entrepreneurship and access to capital. You're 34 years old at the time. You're a Black investor, 70 trillion under management. Only 1.3% is managed by people who look like you and women. Why won't you decide to start your own fund? Now, unfortunately, I think this is very important to note. Black folk, people of color, women as well, have what many calls imposter syndrome. And I for sure had it very early, but also recognize my privilege because I had a pretty solid support system of mentors who was also well respected in the industry, who pushed me to encourage me to start what today is now Zeal. So I spent 2019, Troy, market mapping, doing analysis, supply and demand being what are the key problems that are happening from a societal and also from a market opportunity, but also from a supply perspective, what are the companies, entrepreneurs who are building companies that are potentially filling these gaps? And specifically, what gaps am I referring to? I spent the past 7 years investing in future work companies that are dedicated to narrowing the skills gap between education and employment, and then financial technology that directly supports the un- and underbanked. And so I thought to myself, Warren Buffett always says, you stay within your competency, do that well first,
Yep.
right, and then scale. So I felt like it was important for me to build an institutional fund that's building on top of my investment career and track record. And so today, Zeal Capital Partners, we went into market end of January, beginning of February of 2020, legal docs and everything set in place to focus on sourcing, partnering with exceptional, diverse management teams. We mean that holistically. That's laser focused on rethinking the building blocks of wealth, from education to employment pathways to financial wellness, that we believe turbocharges is pivotal in turbocharging economic mobility across the country. And so today, I think you want me to share. So we are publicly, it says it was 62.1 million. Shortly after that public announcement, we did increase our investment to 63.2. And we're proud to have early champions, early institutional capital corporations, particularly financial services and fintech companies like Truist, BB&T and SunTrust merger, PayPal, who was on Anchor, Google, large tech giant, Synchrony Financial. And I'm proud, and a little biased, probably my best LP is my alma mater at Hampton University. So we're incorporating HBCUs in the mix, who have actually historically have been left out or haven't had an opportunity to get into high growth across the private market. So very excited to launch Zeal, and we're already active deploying capital, taking a highly concentrated approach. We're not spraying and praying. We want to make sure we have enough bandwidth to lean into the companies and help them get to that next stage of growth. So again, thank you, Troy, for providing this space, and just couldn't.
Man, a lot of places I want to go with time won't let me go everywhere, but let me try to. One, I do want you to let's talk a little bit about HBCUs. You brought up Hampton, the College by the Sea. Campus by the sea. So talk about
home by the sea, Troy.
Home by the sea. Home by the sea.
Hamptonians who's listening, they're gonna
freak out. They're gonna freak out.
Correct you.
One of my boys is already gonna be texting me as soon as this comes out. But talk about that base that gave you to do what you do now. I think people need to hear that. I think it's important for people to understand two things: that base, but like you just said, that you're providing opportunities for wealth creation, not just for yourself and others that are in your network, but for Hampton and those who are in that space.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad we're bringing this to light. When we think about endowments across our HBCUs, I don't care if you're a top tier uh, HBCU endowment like a Hampton or Morehouse or a Howard, et cetera. Um, we have to rethink how we increase university endowments in HBCUs. We know the uh, the roles that from a job creation perspective to a talent perspective that HBCU graduates have had across our country, across the workforce. Over 70% of STEM graduates Black STEM graduates come from HBCUs. Over 40% of Black doctors come from HBCUs.
Yep.
And so when you think about the impact that Black graduates of HBCUs have had across our country, it is imperative that we maintain the health of our HBCUs. And so outside of donations, like we continue to see often, which we got to keep doing that.
And outside of just attending homecoming, just
outside attending homecomings, right?
Homecoming.
Right. There is another way of increasing endowment, which is investing across the public and private markets, right? And these give endowments the ability to invest in these funds. Zeal of the world, shout out to Low Tony, Plexico Capital, who also has done a great job. Base 10 Partners, who has a excellent initiative to, I believe they have about 5 or 6 other HBCUs as LPs in their funds. And part of that carried interest is going back into not only the returns of the fund, depending on their investment amount, but there's a portion of carried interest that's going back into the HBCUs as well. And so we're coming up with these innovative models and providing access to the public and private market focused funds to give HBCUs the opportunity to be part of high performing funds that will generate allow these endowments to increase their allow these universities to increase their endowments. And so it's really exciting, and I'm dedicating throughout the longevity of Zeal. I will always leave allocation room for not only Hampton University, but all HBCUs who have an interest in joining future Zeal funds.
So I hope folks who are listening, who attended HBCUs or administrators at HBCUs, just heard what he just said. And I want to amplify a point and use a different word, but it's a summary of everything that Nasir's saying. But because I've worked at several HBCUs, as our listeners know, and the word is intergenerational wealth and intergenerational equity. That's really what he's talking about is how do we make sure that this wealth that we create has longevity to it. That's frankly what, if you look at the wealth of families in this country, that's what they have, and they've planned for it and they've done it. And that's how you can have a Harvard that has a $30 billion endowment, because they thought through, this isn't about today, it's about tomorrow. And we've got to be more about that. But again, hope folks are listening that this is an opportunity to invest in a young man and who's thinking about, yes, how to create the next Google and how to create the next Uber and all those kind of cool things, but not just that, but how to do that with folks who don't always look like the founders of some of those companies that we were just talking about. Which brings me to, man, time is a funny thing, and you said 2019, and I think that's how important that is. I want our listeners to hear this, because you started down this path and started getting people interested in this concept prior to what happened in 2020, obviously COVID, but more importantly, George Floyd, and what I frankly call, kind of the white guilt money that kind of came out of what happened before. But you started before that became, because every time I turn on my LinkedIn, somebody else is getting hired to run somebody's DEI at somebody's company. So you were right before that happened. Yeah. So tell me how you got ahead of that, and frankly, how you've taken advantage of that, of that momentum.
Yeah, that's let me be clear. I think I'd be the first to raise my hand amongst all of my peers and all of my managers, particularly diverse managers, my peers, is that I don't think we would have raised, and I'm sure you agree with this as well, if it wasn't for, unfortunately, the tragic incident of George Floyd and the uproar that we've seen, or we probably haven't seen since the 1960s in terms of social unrest. And we probably would have raised 15, 20 million. In fact, my goal from the very beginning was 25 million.
Wow.
Honestly, and I was content with that. But I do think there's a correlation between the two sectors that I spent all of 2019 and the past 7 years proactively investing in. And that's education technology, that's employment technology, that's people operations, HR tech. On the financial technology side, that's areas like rethinking credit access expansion, like rethinking FICO scores.
Yep.
New forms of affordable infrastructure tools for new and small businesses. Thinking about new savings and wealth creation platforms that could change the consumer's financial behavior in terms of their relationship with money and how you think about investing. Now, those two sectors, coincidentally, were actually pivotal, highlighted, accelerated, businesses accelerated across those areas during over the past year. Many can argue the food and the healthcare space as well, for sure. But think about distant learning and resources that support, again, the small businesses that were having challenges staying afloat.
Yeah.
There was, and on top of that, we noticed a huge market opportunity, given that a lot of these small companies' adoption rate increased. And so, and on top of that, we knew where to find those entrepreneurs. We already have relationships from our time at my time at AT&T and Bill Cap, and then of course my broader team. I have two incredible EIRs who were pro.
That's entrepreneurs in residence for folks that don't know. Entrepreneurs in residence.
Well, in this case, we actually coined our executives in residence.
Executive in residence, exactly. Yep.
Pay homage to their experience in both spaces. So for them, I was okay with saying executive in residence. But you're right, to your listeners, usually is EIRs is for entrepreneurs in residence. And then I have a rock star senior associate and Andy Will, and an incredible operator and researcher, and Nikki Wardlaw, and my CFO. We wouldn't be where we are today without Cheryl and Cassiano Williams, who one of the senior executive at KKR, who led the family office of Henry Kravitz and all the New York General Partners. Wow. And of course, a rock star advisory board who has domain and operating experience across the future of work, financial services, racial and economic equity, and impact investing. And so that the infrastructure was also incredibly important as well. But yeah, I thought it was important to highlight that as well.
No, so again, because we could talk all day, and I know we don't get together, so we can't really talk. But you said a couple of times, and I want you to spend time to our listeners, the role that mentors, advisors, and coaches have played in your career, and you talked about your advisory board. I think it's important for people to understand, and I'll maybe sway the jury a little bit in that I like to talk, and I just actually was on a podcast talking to folks that find you an advisor and a coach that looks like you and doesn't look like you. And comes from your background and doesn't come from your background. You got to have, because you want an advisor who is going to challenge you, give you good guidance, introduce you to networks that you could not get into, but also provide you a sense of where you really are and where you could be.
No, Troy, God rest his soul, one of my biggest mentors. I get a little choked up sometimes when I talk about him, but Vernon Jordan was one of my closest mentors. I was a decades, age gap, but I learned so much from him in terms of his business acumen and his focus on Nasir. It's when you come out of Hampton, when you early in your career, this whole learn, earn, return buckets across life. And when you're learning to gain a solid skill set, to be known for something. And then when you are earning, he focused a lot. You only get to a point where whether you have domain expertise, you have social or even financial capital, you focus on, to whom much is given, much is required. So you return by mentoring others. So I've always made time and made it a point to mentors, because he and others, and Ray McGuire is another, and George Russell was another, that lean into me, poured everything into me to give me the confidence to be where I am today, both personally and professionally. And then learn, earn.
Return.
Sorry, actually I had it backwards. So earning is when you're gaining your financial and personal capital and social capital. Returning, is when you're doing most of your mentoring, because now you've developed a solid social Rolodex, and you again, going back to who much is given, much required. But yes, the mentorship, Troy has played a critical role in my life, and that's something that I will continue to do throughout my life on this earth.
I like your words, because I use them too. Is someone's poured into me, and so therefore I have to pour into others, and it is that going on and being able to pour on. So, man, as we close out, why don't you a little bit more commercial on Zeal? How can folks know more about Zeal, where do they need to go, and the types of where you invest in, the continuum, and the type of industries you invest in? You mentioned a couple, but just to repeat some of that so folks will know.
Yeah, so share some portfolio construction and how we think about it. So we are focused on backing about 25 to 30 companies over a 4-year period, which means we'll make about 5 to 8 investments per year. We invest in early stage businesses, preferably tech-enabled, that are at the intersection or between our future of work sectors, with a focus on skills, right? So companies that are focusing on narrowing the skills gap between education and employment. Yep. These are companies that are also selling into post-secondary, into workforce. So we're not investing in K-12 companies. We're also investing in companies across the financial technology sector that have a direct focus around wealth, and providing products and services that help consumers, families, communities, and small businesses ensure that they're wealth, focus on wealth generation, whether it's rethinking FICO scores or new forms of financial management platforms, you name it. In pre-seed, we invest in pre-seed companies. Average check size ranges between $250,000 to $500,000. And for our seed to Series A companies, we'll underwrite anywhere between $500,000 to $1.3 million is our sweet spot. About 10 to 18 million post-money valuation is our sweet spot around valuation. And yeah, if you want to learn more, on the one hand, I'm very open in sharing my email address. It's nasir@zealvc.co. But of course, you can also find us on social media at Zeal VC on all social platforms. You can also go on our website at zealvc.co. Of course, you can find me personally on social media at Nasir Qadree as well. But again, Troy, thank you so much for your
Thank you, brother. So when's the next marathon, brother? When's the next marathon?
Denver, October 16th.
October 16th.
Next month.
So no COVID, how's COVID impacted your training and ability to run?
It has. I haven't been running long distances much. I think one of the things when you run at least 3 or 4 marathons, you just try to maintain from that point, you just maintain good shape and running constantly. But I'm just starting to focus on this next marathon, but I'm very much excited. I think this is going to be probably a tough one. A, I haven't run a marathon in just under 2 years. And then B, Denver has high elevation.
How
So
about I say
usually
elevation?
running with your mask on is great practice for me.
God bless you, brother. But look, continue to do what you do, continue to be who you are, continue to make the impact that you will do. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate all that you're doing. Again, this is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO. Thanks again. Everybody enjoy your white, get out your white. Like Nasir said, you can wear your white after Labor Day. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Nasir.
Thank you, Troy.